Okay. Then microphone. All set. Okay. Glass is straight. Ready, set, go. Okay, so in this role I'm representing Prosys OPC as the CTO, responsible of our OPC UA product development. And I'm not going to talk much about Prosys, more or less what we have been doing. But we are a Finnish company that has been dedicating a lot of time in OPC development for over 20 years. And we've been also hosting these events because we want to see OPC UA become big. And in this demonstration, I'm showing you how you can try out OPC UA PubSub yourself so that you can understand it a little bit more. I started understanding it only when I started doing it. And through these applications that we brought to the market, we hope that it gets a little bit more clear for everybody. So I'm first gonna talk a little bit about the PubSub model, which Matthias has already been mentioning and explaining a bit. Also things related to the PubSub configuration, how does it happen in practice. But then I'm jumping into the demo. I'm showing Prosys OPC UA simulation server as a publisher and Prosys OPC UA browser as a subscriber. And these are both free applications, and we just released updates yesterday with the latest functionality. And one of the latest functionality includes now an Open Industry 4.0 demo in the simulation server because it's following the PubSub MQTT communication, so I can show how that works in practice and how it differs from the default OPC UA publisher. But on the browser side, we didn't do anything special. We've just been refining features with the latest release as well. And in OI4, I'll mention the message bus again, and then I show what's the data that OI4 has defined to publish the master asset model, which conforms to the vendor nameplate that OPC Foundation has defined, and then the device health information, which is also following the OPC Foundation definitions. So first, a bit of reminder. Last year in the virtual OPC Day, I had a presentation where I explained PubSub, and this is one of the slides from there. The rest of that you will find from the last year's material from YouTube and from the last year's web page, or from the Prosys OPC blog. But in principle, the publisher subscriber model is simple. We have publisher components, and in the publisher you can create data sets. And the data sets can be created for variables or for events. And this is actually following exactly the client-server model of OPC UA, where you can monitor data changes from variables or you can monitor events. So PubSub is actually sending the same data that you get from client-server if you monitor changes. And in the publisher model, the publisher is just broadcasting this information to a network. And it's sending data changes to these variables, or it's sending event notifications, which are like snapshots of certain event data or alarm data. And then you can have a subscriber that can filter from the network whatever it needs. And then this extends. You can have any number of publishers, and you can have any number of subscribers in practice as well. And the network, I'm using the term network because in PubSub we have these two alternatives. You can use UDP broadcast, or you can use a broker-based MQTT broker-based communication. But if we want to talk about this with one term, I use the term network. And from the publisher and subscriber point of view, they are basically the same. There's just a little bit different technology behind. The configuration of the publisher and the subscriber follows the similar model. You have to configure a connection which defines what network you are using. And within that connection, you can define writer groups and dataset writers that define how you are writing data to the network. And you can also define reader groups and dataset readers that are defining how you read data from the network. On the other side of the configuration, you configure datasets, which consist of number of fields. And then that's really like the data definition, and this is like the connection definition. And the dataset writer is linked to the dataset, and the dataset reader is also linked to the dataset. But you can have different readers and writers writing the same, writing and reading the same datasets. And if you have writers in your component, then you are a publisher. If you have readers in your component, then you are a subscriber. And you can be both. There's no limitation on that. But typically we think that the applications are either publishers or subscribers. And these datasets, they can be variable datasets. This is like my term. I think the official, we have just published dataset. But the dataset in practice, it can refer to variables or it can refer to event fields. And we use the same mechanism, same message structure to deliver this information. And this concept is useful for both. Okay, then in the demo, I'm going to show you how the OPC UA simulation server connects to an Eclipse MQTT broker and how the browser also actually connects to the same broker, and then the simulation server is going to send data to the broker, and the browser receives that data and can display it. So this functionality was already released in the previous version 5.3, and now in 5.4 we've been refining it. This is a free edition that you can run this demo with, and we just need to start by configuring the PubSub connection. And for that to start, we enable an expert mode in the publisher, and that brings out a PubSub page on the application, and then we can configure the connection to the broker, and we need to run Mosquito behind. So next I'll show it in real. So I have the simulation server running. I can show you the basic functionality. Like Aapo just mentioned that Beckhoff is just coming up with a beta version of this, but this is real. This already we have the information modeling capabilities in simulation server since a couple of years, and now we have the PubSub. And with this part, you can model like simulator server address space. You can check what types are supported, and you can add additional namespaces here. Also the namespace, with the free version you can use the standard namespaces, but with the pro version you can also add additional namespaces and bring more information here. And in the slide set that you will get an evaluation code for the pro version as well, that you can try out that functionality too. But for the PubSub, I'll switch to the expert mode. I go to the PubSub view. I've just installed everything here, so I haven't even tried that it works here, but I trust. our software expertise. Within this broker, I don't have any user authentication or any security configure, so I can just type in localhost. It's running there in the background. I can test. Connection seems to work, so now I'm ready to go. So the connection is already configured. I could define the encoding. So OPC UA defines for MQTT, you can choose JSON encoding for the messages, which we typically use, but you could also use the alternative binary UADP encoding. If you use UDP connection, it actually goes exactly the same. From the configure, you just choose UDP protocol and define the UDP address where you want to broadcast the information. And in UDP communication, you can only use the UADP binary messages. But I'm just concentrating on the MQTT now. So the other part of this configuration was the datasets, and by default, we have defined that there is a default. Okay, just show you. We have a default dataset here. We have a few simulation signals in the simulation server that are just running some data in them. And within the PubSub, we have a fixed set that we have all these 6 signals configured for the PubSub dataset, the variable dataset. I have also an event dataset here configured with a few selected fields, and the simulation server has a pre-configured event that is sending all the time. Actually, with the latest version, we also added functionality to simulate some custom event types manually, but I'm not going into that now. So that's the dataset part, and then here you can see the dataset writer and the event dataset writer configuration. This is also already pre-configured for this fixed demo. Here we have selected that we are publishing the sample variable dataset that is defined on the other side of the configuration. And here we can also define more details about the message format because OPC UA definitions leave this open. You can choose what details you want to put in the message. Also, they define the format for the message, but there's still a lot of freedom how you want to use it. And with these flags, you can choose what information goes in the messages. Also, the topic trees in MQTT are defined here. Like we said, and Stefan mentioned that everybody is free to use their own topic trees. But now OPC Foundation is coming up with the recommendations, and we are following the latest recommendations for the MQTT topic trees here. And then OI4 has their own recommendations for the topic trees, and that will be visible in the other demo. But basically everything is configured, and I can just start the publisher, and now it's up and running. And I have the PubSub in the status page. I can see that this is the address. And now I can go to the browser. I had some slides about the browser here, so I'll show you that first. So this is a generic OPC UA client in the first place, similar to UA Expert that Matthias was showing. But we now have also the functionality to act as an MQTT subscriber or a UDP subscriber. And from the front page, you can find instructions how to do that. Basically, you just need to write the address to the address bar at the top and connect. So I copied the address and I can write it here, and then I can connect. And I need to define the topic filter that I want to use. The idea with browser is that you don't need to know anything about the communication in advance. It will tell you what's going on. So if I want to just monitor everything that's going on in the broker, I can just use the topic filter wildcard. And if the MQTT broker in its username password, then I can use those here. So now I'm connecting and the browser is just showing what data is running there. And by default, it can even classify that this is the variable data that's running in, and there is also event data. And I can choose the different dataset writers that seem to be sending data there, and it will switch on the view between the data and the event view. But if I want to see everything, I can just clear the selection and I see everything that's going on in the broker. Okay, maybe I'll give the teaser at this point. I have a pre-configured address here. OPC Foundation is running the IOP broker that was mentioned in the morning as well. I can connect the browser to the IOP broker and let's see what comes up. So basically it knows nothing about the PubSub communication that's going on there. But I have the address here. Unfortunately, it needs a username and password, which I'm not allowed to reveal to you. But we can just connect, and this acts as an MQTT subscriber, but it can also understand when it sees OPC UA communication going on. And in OPC UA, we need metadata to understand what are the field names for some messages. I think these are the binary messages that are missing the field names, so therefore we have a lot of field names without a proper name here because we don't have the metadata for them. But if I choose something like a KUKA's publisher here, then I will see JSON messages and I can see the data that the KUKA publisher is sending to the IOP broker. I can always go and study the message format here as well. We see there's actually also some OI4 communication already going, but let's see. There's the KUKA publisher, and here you can see what is the contents of the OPC UA PubSub message happening there.
May I only say one comment?
Okay.
Like, I'm assuming someone would send the metadata there for the UADP, we would show the message. It's just not everyone is sending those messages because there is sort of no predefined way how it should be done, or it might be in the new recommendations, but it will take time before people will adopt to use those.
Yeah.
But we'll basically make those placeholder names if there's no metadata. Plus there's some technical stuff that we ignore here.
Yeah. So then the final part is the OI4 simulation. Konrad explained the message bus that is PubSub MQTT, and then OI4 has picked the OPC UA vendor nameplate information that is defined in the device information model specification as master asset model, like the manufacturer and serial number information, and they picked another data set defined for device health in the same OPC UA specification, and they define how these messages are sent specifically to an MQTT broker using OPC UA PubSub. This is something, as Konrad described, that the OPC Foundation doesn't yet define how these standard datasets would be delivered. And for this, you will also need the Server Pro license, and here is the license code that you can use for the rest of the year. And then you can ask for more if you wish to try this later. And this requires now the device information model to be added to the server. And then I can enable the OI4 views. So first, I can just add the device information model is now embedded in the server. So I can just add it here. and it appears here as a new namespace that is supported. Then I can switch to the Open Industry 4.0 mode, and I get the new tabs for the device information. This I would also like to see on the OPC UA server side, because this is actually modeling an OPC UA device. And then I can define an MQTT address for the OI4 connection. The OI4 is defining these OI4 identifiers for each component that are sending data to the message bus. Now it's the same broker that we used for the first demo, and then I've defined that, okay, I want to send the master asset model data and I want to send the device health data every 10 seconds. I switch this on and I go back to the browser. I go to the localhost broker, and we already have the OI4 data coming in here too. So if I filter with that, and I can show you the publisher ID is here now comprised of the OI4 identifier, so it's different to the publisher ID defined by the OPC Foundation. But the data is coming in the same way, and it works basically the same way. So it's just a little bit different data definitions there. So with that, I'm ready to finish my presentation, and I'm showing you that in our blog you will find these 3 articles, like the presentation from last year and this demo, and both of these demos also described.
Thank you, Jo.